court case to declare power cuts unconstitutional has kicked off. Yesterday it was held virtually because of countrywide protest action. But as of today, proceedings will be happening in the North Gauteng High Court. A full bench will hear the legal case brought by the UDM and 18 others to declare blackouts unconstitutional. Respondents include the Presidency, NERSA, DPE, DMRE, as well as Eskom's management and board. Let's now speak to one of the applicants, ActionSA, the organization's national chairperson. Michael Beaumont joins us this morning. Michael, good morning and thank you very much for your time.
Good morning. It's great to be here to talk about this issue.
No, it's a pleasure to have you. You know, one would say that yesterday was a very significant day because we had the blackouts issue being tackled on the streets, but it was also being tackled in court, almost overshadowed. But very important what happened in court yesterday. Perhaps take us through those proceedings.
Well, I think it's a very important piece of litigation that we're proud to be a part of. I think there's no question South Africans have had to endure load shedding since 2007. But since about October last year, that load shedding has become severe and continuous. And really, the impact that it has on the constitutional freedoms that are guaranteed to South Africans. We are guaranteed electricity in our constitution. We are guaranteed the right to health and dignity and economic development. And all of these rights are being undermined by continuous load shedding with a government that doesn't appear to have a plan. And from our point of view, the most important thing is to look at those most vulnerable parts of our society, particularly looking at schools, hospitals, police stations, to ensure that those entities can be exempt from load shedding in such a way that the education of our children, the safety of our streets, and the health of our patients can be protected in what appears to be continuous load shedding without any respite right now.
Speaking of exemptions, though, has the horse not bolted in that respect with the state of disaster? Because when going through the regulations, it seems the intention is to exempt a significant number of institutions.
Well, I think the fact that government's talking about doing these things is one thing, and it's obviously a first step. But I think there would be too many examples in our country of government talking about doing things without actually taking the steps to do them. And when you look at Eskom's papers that have been filed in respect of their reply, they are saying it can't be done. So here you have a government that is gazetting that all these institutions should be exempted to some extent from load shedding, and Eskom saying that this is impossible.
Andre Director in his submission stated that if we're going to have too many exemptions, really the system would collapse.
Well, sure. And I think the point is that would be an understandable position if we were in a government that was making real strides towards ending load shedding. But here we are 15 years later, 16 years later, the situation hasn't improved, it's gotten worse, and government's plan remains opaque to most South Africans, as well as the progress that's being made against that plan. In that environment, surely the right thing to do is say we must protect our children, we must protect our sick, and we must make sure our policemen and women can do the important work of fighting crime in our country.
You know, the one answering affidavit that got the most attention was that of the president. Everyone would remember that in his answering affidavit, he decided to take you through or remind you of the obligations of the three spheres of government and went on to stress that, in fact, providing electricity was an obligation of the municipality. What did you make of those submissions?
Well, I think it's laughable. I think the point is the generation of electricity in South Africa is the problem. And I think that's the reason why we have load shedding. It's a classic case of demand and supply, and demand is exceeding supply. And the job of generating electricity is the job of national government. Now, it is no question that various spheres of government have to be part of the solution because of the crisis that's been created by national government. But I think the entire process has been hugely disappointing and shows how important this litigation is when government's own answering affidavit is saying it's Eskom's fault. And the South African people must accept that this is, not government itself. It's crazy.
And then the matter sat down for how many days? Just remind us.
Well, I think it's continuing again on Wednesday.
All right.
But there was allusion to the fact that it may need further time after that, and then they'll be sitting in again in May for the kind of Part B application.
Okay, so basically from Wednesday, it will be now in court directly. It will no longer be virtual.
Correct, in the North Gauteng High Court, and I think we look forward to being there because we are very proud to be part of this case. We want to be there in the courtroom, and we want to be there to fight for South Africans on this very important issue.
It's a first for South Africans. Honestly, a precedent-setting case, however the judge rules. And then to today, it's a very important day, Human Rights Day. What does Human Rights Day mean to ActionSA and to Michael Beaumont?
Well, I think Human Rights Day is just such an important part of our calendar, and it's lost its luster a little bit over the years with one government failure after another. And the fact that we have to be taking our government to court to fight to end load shedding is just a classic case in such close proximity to understand what the problems are with human rights in our country. But I think from ActionSA, the message is not a negative and a downtrodden one. It is to say that we have an election next year, and ultimately, if we are going to make sure that human rights has its meaning once again, it has to be achieved through the polls in 2024.
All right. Michael, thank you very much for your time this morning. That was ActionSA National Chairperson Michael Beaumont.